Okay, recording. Okay, guys. So, my name's Harry. This is my team story. I thought I'd start with a picture of me as a kid. I know everyone loves pictures of people as kids. I'm happy to say I don't dress like this anymore. But when I was a kid, I absolutely loved David Beckham, hence the England shirt. I loved him more than anyone else. And also hence why I support Manchester United to this very day. I watch almost every game. I follow the news on a daily basis. I absolutely love it. But my childhood wasn't all fun and games. When I was a kid, I actually had trouble talking and speaking English. I was of an age where I should have been talking, should have been speaking, but I wasn't. And my excuse was that my sister, being the bossy girl that she used to speak for me. I used to speak gibberish, and she used to translate to my parents, and hence there was no need for me to actually learn English. My parents, of course, they thought this was an issue more than I did. They forced me to go to speech therapy lessons, and I'm glad to say eventually I conquered the art of talking. But as I grew up, I also realised football wasn't the only sport in the world. I got really into rugby when I was about 8 years old. I played rugby until I was about 21. It's an awesome game. It's physical, it's gruesome. You wake up in the morning and your whole body hurts and it's hard to walk. But I think the teamwork and the camaraderie was brilliant. And as you get older, there's this social side as well, where you go out for beers and you have a really good time with your teammates. But when I was 21, I was forced to stop playing in the space of 6 months. I had 2 operations. I tore the ligaments in my knee. I couldn't walk for about 2 months. And then my first game back, I shattered my thumb into about 100 pieces. Had another operation just as I was due to write my final exams at university. So I decided enough is enough, and I thought I'd give up this silly game that gets you injured all the time. So this is where I grew up. I'm English. I was born in Bristol, which, as you can see on the map, is in the west of England. And then I moved to the countryside, which is a beautiful part of the world, very green. This is on the walk where I take my dog every day when I'm in England. But the problem is with living somewhere like this is that there's a really high pollen count. So all the flowers around, there's loads of pollen. And unfortunately, I'm allergic to pollen. So I suffer really badly from hay fever. In the mornings, I wake up and I sneeze about 20 times in a row. I can't leave the house. I have to shut every window. Otherwise, the pollen gets inside. I literally can't do anything. So I'm very happy to be in Rwanda right now. I left home for the first time when I was 18, and I went to study anthropology at Durham University, which is in the north of England. It's about a 4-hour drive from my house, which for me was quite a big distance for England. Anthropology is an amazing subject. I'm not sure how many people know it, but you study about humankind, basically. It's the study of humans. So you study how man has evolved from a monkey into someone who walks into an office with a briefcase, if you believe in evolution, that is. You also learn about different tribes and different cultures and the way, communities have evolved. It was a really interesting subject, and I think it's taught me a lot about understanding different countries, understanding the people, and also when researching, kind of digging deeper than just what you see on the surface. But when I graduated, which was 2 years ago, I had no idea what I wanted to do. By the way, guys, I hope you appreciate the color scheme in this slide. So when I was at university, I worked for a consulting firm for a few months. Absolutely hated it, but it's what all my friends were doing. I decided that wasn't for me. I think I wanted to find a team that was smaller, doing something exciting, and something that would grow fast and maybe become big. So I was on the lookout for a startup. And I came across What 3 Words. which I know Barrett and Peter know quite well. What Through Words is a really funky idea. Basically, what they've done is divided the whole world into a grid of squares. So there's a square in every corner of the earth. And each square is 3 meters by 3 meters. So there's probably a couple with maybe 3 or 4 squares in this room. And every single square, they've given a 3-word address. So I actually found the 3-word address of the office here in Kigali, and it's bulge, pays, motive. And so anyone in the world, if you give them this address, rather than saying the Congo Business Center, and you get on a moto and they don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going, you type this into the app and it takes you straight to the front door. So they've mapped the whole world in loads of different languages. And I'm sure guys in Kinshasa and around Kigali, addresses aren't that developed. It's quite hard to tell a moto where you're going without showing him Google Maps, right? So this is like a new way to talk about addressing. I worked at What Through Words for about 8 months. It was a really cool experience. I worked in the business development team. I was traveling about 20 days a month. Here's me in LA collecting a prize, I think on my second day. Me in Hollywood, and then this picture here is me in Saudi Arabia, which is actually a really funny story. So I traveled to Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and I was tasked for 2 weeks to try and convince restaurants and cafes to put their signs up with their 3-word address. Bear in mind, I spoke no Arabic and they spoke no English. It turned out to be quite a tricky task, but it's one of my fondest memories. It was a really crazy couple of weeks. I definitely learned a lot doing that. I also got to travel to Tokyo when I was with What Through Words, which is actually my favorite city. Walking around, it was like being on a different planet. All these lights, all these strange behaviors that people adhere to. It was quite an amazing experience. But actually, I'm not one for cities usually. I quite like being in the countryside, being in the wilderness, being in the mountains. And about 6 months ago, I was lucky to travel to Nepal. I spent 2 weeks on my own hiking around the Himalayas. I think it was the best time of my life to date. I had a friend join me, we did another hike. But I think that feeling of being in the mountains, being that high up, is really liberating. It was an amazing experience, and we got quite high in the end. I think we reached about 5,000 meters. At which point, it's really hard to breathe. The air's really thin. You're taking like a centimeter step every time. It's super cold, but I think when you accomplish something like that, getting to the top, it's an amazing feeling. Jumping back slightly, when I was at What Through Words, I was always really interested by the dev team, all the guys coding and writing the technology. I was also frustrated. I was also frustrated at the fact that I couldn't explain what an API was to a customer or a client. And so I eventually left What Through Words and decided to learn to code at a coding bootcamp. It was 9 weeks long. I learned Ruby on Rails. I learned JavaScript. I learned how to build a website and deploy it on Heroku. And when I left, they asked me to become a teacher and help the next batch of students like myself learn to code. So I did that for about 6 months, worked on my coding skills, got a bit better, but it was a really cool vibe, beers every evening, free pizza for lunch, that kind of thing. But I knew that I wanted to go back somewhere to Africa. When I was 21, I was lucky enough to travel around Southern Africa. I started in Cape Town. There's me on the top left, looking at Table Mountain. The top right's me in Namibia. The bottom left is me in Botswana, doing a stupid elephant sign. And on the bottom right is me in Zambia at Victoria Falls. I fell in love with the countries that I visited. The people were amazing, so friendly. The sunsets were the best I've ever seen, the wildlife, everything about it. And I think ever since I left, I always wanted to go back somewhere to Africa. And so when I was at the coding course, I was looking for jobs in West Africa, and I wanted to do some volunteering. And I came across this role in Sierra Leone. It was a role with a charity that ran a school and a hospital. And my role was to help with the fundraising team to raise funds, raise money, and try and get these projects, working a bit better, because the funding had really decreased in the last few years. Sierra Leone is a beautiful country, but it's also one of the poorest in the world. But you wouldn't know that if you went and spoke to the people. They're some of the friendliest, smiliest people you'll ever meet. And halfway through my stay in Sierra Leone, I was introduced to Barrett and Peter. We got talking, and that took me to Rwanda. So this is where I am at the moment in my journey. I'm really happy to
right now.
I'm really happy to be here. I'm really excited for what we're doing here. I think my first week has been a whirlwind, but a good one. And yeah, I'm excited to meet you guys in Nairobi and in Kinshasa soon. I hope we can meet up and have a beer. But yeah, that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, who has a question for Harry?
I got a question. Hi Harry, this is Chris.
Hey Chris.
You said you played rugby, right?
Yeah.
So my question is, I was playing American football, and then when I was in Kenya, I was asked to play rugby with the guys, but I ended up like crazy because I was trying to pull the ball off the guy in front of me. And one thing I never understood: who came up with rugby passing the ball to the guy behind? Which sport is that? Right? Who came up with?
The rule in rugby is that you have to go backwards to go forwards, and I think it's a game of patience, a game of skill, a game of strategy. But I think you get used to it, Chris. If we played a little bit of rugby, I know there's a few teams here in Kigali. We should have a little play around sometime.
Thank you for that. Okay, who else has a question? I have a question. So first of all, Harry, I'd like to thank you for all of us now. I want to appreciate telling our taxi drivers to take a deliberate goal and but my question is, what are you more interested to visit, Nairobi or Kinshasa, and why?
Please, can you repeat, Nash? Did you hear? No, I don't know.
Harry, you're coming across from two mics.
Yeah, can you cut one mic, Harry?
One.
Okay, shoot. Sorry, Barrett, can you repeat?
Sure. Which city are you more interested to visit, Nairobi or Kinshasa, and why?
I think the thing about Nairobi is it's a bit more developed, right, in terms of tech. In place, it's supposed to be the tech hub of East Africa, right? Which is cool, and I'd love to visit. But I think to go to Kinshasa, where there's one startup, and to see how that works, I think that's a bit more appealing. To see the craziness of Kinshasa.
Okay, what about Team Kenya? Does anybody in Kenya have a question for Harry?
For me, I don't have. Maybe what I can ask. So between I
Take Kigali.
Kigali. It's Manchester.
What is it because he's white?
That was no.
Different country, and you have tasted the different food. Which food do you like among all the countries?
All the food. Oh.
Which one do you prefer?
In Africa or everywhere?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. I think my favorite food is definitely Italian. I think. Yeah, good pasta, good pizza. I think I'm a happy man.
So next time I eat.
Okay. All right. Harry, thank you so much. Have we missed any birthdays in the last week? We sung for you last week. Yes. Did we miss any birthdays?
Harry?
And I'll send a picture in general in a second. He's a very handsome guy. He's very loving, unconditional love.
Okay.
We won't tell your mother that.
I brought one picture with me. She knows. It's fine. She knows. I brought one to Kigali, and it's a picture of my dog.
Okay. Who wants to go next week? Team Kinshasa. Olivia, Sarah, or Marta? It's Kinshasa next, isn't it? Yeah. Or Peter. I think it's time for a woman. It's been a while since we've had a female. Okay, guys, we'll do Olivia next week. Everybody have a good weekend. I hope you enjoyed pizza. Thank you so much. Thank you, Harry. Send me the recording.
Nice weekend.